Sure. So KlimaDAO is essentially a carbon market solution above all else. We operate in something called the voluntary carbon market, which is a market where people can create and transact carbon credits. So a carbon credit is equal to the mitigation or removal of 1 ton of carbon from the atmosphere. And I think with the sort of raising awareness around climate change and the need to act, the carbon credits are seeing a lot of demand, with organizations, individuals, everyone kind of wanting a solution to kind of abate the carbon impact that they have. But the carbon markets themselves have had some problems historically, particularly around the sort of efficiency of the market, so how things are transacted. And that's sort of where KlimaDAO comes in. So we kind of sit on the demand side of the market. I think there's two sort of parts to break down on KlimaDAO. There's the kind of protocol itself, and there's the product. So the protocol came first. This was the sort of big vision to leverage the voluntary carbon market and the carbon credits that trade within it to deliver something useful. And do something, I guess, kind of amazing using cryptocurrency to kind of lock these credits away, have an impact on the planet, have an impact on the market. But beyond that, I think as well, we see an opportunity to expose carbon credits themselves to some of the benefits of the blockchain. So, you know, transparency, permissionlessness, liquidity, and these sorts of things. So yeah, we operate on two levels, at the protocol level and then the product level, which kind of sits on top of the infrastructure that we've built.
Got it. Okay. So KlimaDAO has kickstarted decentralized open market for carbon. Any more information on this? Do you have, let's say, how it's structured? Is it already launched? Could you, let's say, explain how anyone, let's say, sitting in UK, in the United States, or in Latvia, from Latvia personally, could, let's say, use your decentralized open market for carbon, let's say, to structure some of their activities? Just
Sure. I think it's a really interesting point. I guess a key piece of infrastructure that we're built on top of is liquidity pools or automated market makers. So these are, you know, developed by organizations such as SushiSwap or Uniswap, and you know, these guys that are called decentralized exchanges, DEXs. So we've essentially developed liquidity pools. We use SushiSwap, and you know, we hold over $20 million worth of liquidity at the moment. So that's, when I say hosting it, there's kind of two sides to these pools. There's tokenized carbon, and then there's our Klima token. So you can interact with Klima or tokenized carbon in those pools. And these pools that we've developed were launched in October. So we've been live for what, 8 or so months now. They've enabled about $2 billion worth of transactions over the sort of last 6 months or so. Wow. So, you know, that's more than the voluntary carbon market itself during certain periods. So we've really had an impact. And yeah, these liquidity pools are really important. KlimaDAO, I should say, has a model called protocol-owned liquidity. So this is something that was pioneered by another DAO called DAO. And the idea behind it is that, you know, a protocol can build up its own liquidity and mitigate risks that we've kind of seen before with liquidity pools, where you might have degens sort of hopping from pool to pool based on the level of incentives that are available, you know, for 1 week to the next. So there's a risk when you're kind of getting lots of people doing yield farming, because, you know, the liquidity could be great for 2 months and then it could just disappear if a new project comes out and incentivizes people to go there. So we've got this protocol-owned liquidity model. Essentially, people can bond an LP position with our treasury, so they can give us their liquidity pool tokens, and then we can essentially accrue that liquidity pool token to start to own the liquidity pool. So with Olympus, if you had an LP position in one of their pools, you could offer up the LP in return for their native token, which is called OHM. and we essentially do something really similar to that using Klima and Klima's liquidity pools. And it's probably worth explaining why this is important. And I think firstly, if we want to build a sort of stable and long-lived carbon market that people have confidence in it. So renting liquidity or having to go into competition with other pools doesn't really do it for us. So yeah, we need the confidence that our LPs can service demand in 3 months or 3 years. So we need to implement this liquidity pool model. But more specifically, I think why it matters in terms of the carbon market is that at the moment, getting hold of carbon credits is really quite difficult. That's whether you're a small business, whether you're an individual or a large corporate. You need to get in touch with a broker. You need to receive quotes on different carbon credits, and it's just a slow and inefficient process. And if you don't really know what you're doing, you can get ripped off. So by developing these decentralized liquidity pools that anyone can access, we provide the liquidity, but anyone can come in and access it. You can come in, you can get that carbon credit that you need, or you can get 10,000 or 100,000 carbon credits that you need to service your carbon needs and execute against that. So it's a total paradigm shift.
Yes. So as I understand, for example, I have a, let's say, manufacturer, let's say in Estonia, and I'm willing, let's say, voluntarily, cover my emissions somehow. I'm willing somehow, let's say, buy carbon credits voluntarily without any, let's say, regulations, but just. Is that type of collaboration possible with KlimaDAO decentralized open market? Because it's important to understand, just from, let's say, a small guy perspective, having, let's say, multi-million $1 million manufacturing somewhere in a small European country, how to, let's say, work with KlimaDAO, because we have a lot of friends like that around.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and that's who we want to speak to. That's the solution we offer for people. Anyone who's got a manufacturing business or a small shop in their local town, and they want to get carbon credits for whatever reason. It might be because their consumers request it. It might be because they want to do something good for the planet. All these reasons, and yeah, we've created a system for those people, so they don't need to phone up a broker and get ripped off anymore. KlimaDAO takes a 1% fee if you use our sushi swap pool and retire carbon credits, which is way smaller than the typical fees that you might get hit with if you transact in the carbon market. It could be a 50%, 150%, 200% fee. You just don't know what the fee is. And all you need is a MetaMask wallet. That's all you need. So yeah, there's some level of knowledge required, but we're trying to break down those barriers that have restricted the market in the past.
Okay. What about Wallet Connect? What about the Wallet Connect ability to, let's say, operate with? Let's say, having Trust Wallet. Is it easy to buy, let's say, tokens? And how I could, let's say, showcase that I'm owner of that amount of KlimaDAO tokens? Because if it's blockchain based, it's beautiful if I could have, let's say, some sort of, let's say, widget, or maybe even some interactive board. Maybe I could switch this TV in my reception and just show to my, let's say, visitors that that business is climate neutral, and maybe that's type of interaction, let's say, anyone could expect from, let's say, online blockchain-based project. That transparency could be part of, let's say, our daily life to improve, let's say, our public appearance.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, first of all, yeah, you just need to be able to interact with DeFi in order to get hold of our tokens. So any wallet is that you might want to use is fine. I would just say that we're on Polygon, so not Ethereum mainnet or anything. So you just have to interact with Polygon. But on your broader point, I mean, I totally agree. I think climate change is a huge issue, and a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is around the need to put pressure on, your favorite brands, or kind of take ownership yourself and socially signal to your friends or your colleagues or whoever it might be that you're taking action. And this is a key sort of piece that Klima was built on top of. So there's the Klima token itself, which is our native token, which is in itself useful. And if you hold Klima over time, you can accrue more carbon, and it's really neat. In this way, this is through our staking mechanism that we've developed. But in addition, what we're built on is the actual tokenized carbon credits themselves. And in the legacy system, what you have to do with a carbon credit is you have to buy it and then you have to retire it. And it's at the point where you retire it that the carbon is, quote unquote, consumed. Until it's retired, it's live and it can be traded. And so what we're developing at the moment, and I spoke a little bit at the beginning around our kind of product suite, which sits on top of the protocol, is a set of products that just make it really easy for people to get hold of those credits, but also to retire the credits. And so we've got two solutions actually that speak exactly to what you just spoke about in terms, having a screen in your office so that people can see your commitment. This is something that isn't really done, at the moment. If you've offset carbon, you can only see if someone's offset carbon if you've got a registry account, which very few people have, or if they kind of do something miraculous and really invest heavily, and then they'll publish it all over their Twitter and their website. But what we've developed is two sort of dashboards, which I think are exactly what you're speaking about. So we've got a great little thing called Love Letters to the Planet. So if you go to loveletter.klimadao.finance, you can see a great sort of selection of letters that people have written to the planet, right? Because if someone's offsetting carbon, they're doing it because they want to make an investment into the world. So we've got hundreds of lovely little letters from people. Mark Cuban has offset his company on there. We've got people who have written letters to their mum and their dog and their friends to say, I'm offsetting for you guys and for the future of the planet. And so we've got a really nice dashboard that lets people express themselves and their motivations for offsetting. And I think that's a great way to social signal and get people kind of involved in understanding around the carbon markets. But I think on a slightly more practical level, and something that we're really pushing hard at the moment, is the more sort of corporate piece, where organizations that have quite significant emissions and need to do something about them. So we're developing a pledge dashboard where organizations can work with us to calculate their carbon footprint, and then make a commitment to offset that carbon footprint over a period of time. So we're developing a neat little dashboard for companies specifically, where they can say, this is our carbon footprint, this is our pledge, this is how much Klima we have, this is how much carbon we've actually offset, and all these sorts of things. So that's in beta mode, and hopefully it's launched very soon. And we're expecting this to be quite a disruptive solution, for exactly the reasons that you just said.
It's easy. You just, let's say, put that informer in any office, in any, let's say, reception, and it will be your logo on it. Because look at our website, we're also using some, I don't recall the name of that company, but they are, let's say, also counting our footprint during operations of our server, and we are covering those, say. So just beautiful to be able to show what are you doing. But let's be tough, because I like tough questions, and we do realize what's going on right now with economy in Europe. I will not talk about, let's say, UK or US. I'm from Europe, and I do understand what's going on in Europe, and we have so much pressure from all of that gas prices, also as a consequence as electricity prices, and a lot of things pushing the business and making very hard for the businesses to survive, just survive. What's the place for, let's say, carbon credits market during that harsh time, because let's be honest, some of the European countries already asking, let's put on hold that ideas about save the earth. We don't have money for that. We're not rich enough to, let's say, be to cover all of that new registrations and etc. So what's your point on that topic? Because let's face it, we have very hard economical times in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally relevant question. I mean, KlimaDAO itself, I would say, is one of many climate solutions. First of all, we ourselves aren't going to solve the climate crisis, but we can certainly help out, and we can have our impact. So I think when we have these conversations, it's important to remember that the climate conversation is, a macro, multi-decadal problem that we have to kind of come together and coordinate on to try and solve. So economic crises themselves, hopefully less than a decade. I mean, touch wood, it doesn't go on for longer than that. If it's shorter or if it's longer, that doesn't change the fundamental point that we need to do something about climate, right? And so I think, from KlimaDAO's perspective, it's a bear market right now. And we need to get our heads down, and we need to build, and we need to think outside the box, and we need to develop useful, practical solutions for people. And we ourselves, we need to position ourselves for when things recover and, other things, i.e. climate, come back up the news agenda, that we're ready to help people out. I take the broad point that things are difficult right now, but I think things will only get more difficult, if we have severe weather events that restricts our resources because we haven't done enough for the climate. So, we are, and I think lots of other organizations are, continuing the conversation and still trying to educate and speak and demonstrate that we need to do things about this. And yeah, KlimaDAO, one of our co-founders always says we're here for a long time, not a good time. And I would just echo that. This is a long-term project.
Yes, it's very important. Just let's be down to the earth, and let's. Could you answer some simple questions? How, let's say, the Elmas land community, or let's say, how the average Joe could, let's say, somehow even having not enough budget for, let's say, some big steps. What the little steps everyone could do just to somehow protect the planet? What's your vision? How they could interact with KlimaDAO? How could they, with your help, do some steps in that direction? Maybe not having the big steps, big leaps, but just small steps. The first steps, how they could be introduced to that, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a couple of ways to look at it. First of all, KlimaDAO will always be a solution for those who want to offset their carbon emissions, if that's something that you're in a position to be able to do. And that's kind of one of our solutions. But I think something that's really becoming quite a hot topic at the moment is around the supply of carbon itself. So as I kind of spoke about in the beginning, the carbon market facilitates the trade of carbon credits, and carbon credits are originated by projects that are doing verifiable good for the planet. And I think crypto opens up a lot of opportunities to kind of go down that route to kind of either fund projects or find demand for projects and those sorts of things. And so I think something that we're looking at the moment is, where is the next generation of carbon supply going to come from? Is it going to be, funded by DAOs? Is it going to be sort of through bespoke community projects and those sorts of things? So Klima plugs into the supply of carbon credits. So if there are small projects that are doing interesting things and can really prove that what they're doing is additional, it's beneficial, and all these sorts of things, we're really interested to see kind of where the carbon supply will come from and what other benefits. It doesn't just have to be about carbon, it can be social benefits, it can be economic benefits that these projects that do sequester or mitigate carbon have an impact.
Okay, and let's say we have waste collection, let's say activities or something like that with our audience. How we could interact with the KlimaDAO? How it could be, let's say, translated to your, let's say, tax infrastructure. How it could be, let's say, part of also your economy, whatever.
So I think at a certain point it gets quite technical. And there needs to be certain guarantees built into any carbon token that we use. But, you know, fundamentally, 1 carbon credit is equal to 1 ton of CO2. So if there was a project, waste collection project or whatever, and you could demonstrate, you know, the number of tons of carbon impact that it's had, and then, you know, typically what happens is that you'll get kind of an external party to take a look at that project and say, okay, that's true. This project meets these criteria and it's equaled this amount of tons. Well, then once that kind of piece of work has been done and there's guarantees and assurances around the project, that's when things like KlimaDAO can come in and say, look, this is something that we think has a space in the market, has a role to play in our treasury development, and that's when we can kind of have the conversation. So yeah, absolutely, it's that. And I think that's part of a broader point about what KlimaDAO is trying to do. You know, we've got all these benefits that we know the blockchain can deliver, but how do we put those to benefit the actual planet and bridge the gap between the online world and the offline world? And so that's kind of the incentive we want to deliver. You know, guys like you, if you're developing an interesting project or something, yeah, how do we kind of make those two worlds meet?
Yes, that's very important. Some sort of oracles, whatever that oracles approach towards, let's say, because let's say we will using let's say Earth Sense. It's agritech. It's small agritech robotics. It's some small robots. And they already working with different farmers and they counting all of that carbon footprint, and that's how they generate additional revenue stream for the farmers with those Earth Sense. So some things could be done with satellites. I know a lot of satellites groups and have very beautiful satellites projects. They also could, let's say, work with you. Feels like you have huge opportunity with that marketing. But the question is, it doesn't matter where on Earth I'm actually generating that KlimaDAO tokens, because the Earth is the Earth is the Earth. We have just one atmosphere, and it counts no matter where it's generated, until I could prove it and verify it from, let's say, trustable inner validators. Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe we shouldn't do this too much, but it is useful when you're talking about it to kind of split the carbon market in half. You've got the supply side and you've got the demand side. And so I think what we've seen for sure is that on the demand side, it's very much focused towards sort of the Western countries, you know, Europe, North America, etc. And these people in these countries or organizations in these countries really want to consume carbon credits to offset their emissions. They've often, I mean, historically, since the Industrial Revolution, by far had the biggest carbon footprint. So you can argue that that's fair. But in terms of the supply side, no, I think absolutely international. And I think the biggest impact often comes in countries that have developed less and kind of need that additional support, which comes from the Western demand for the market to kind of help develop projects and develop communities. And, you know, what's more is that these communities in less developed countries are disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change. So no, there's probably a case to be made that it should explicitly be in sort of less developed countries. So yeah, no, international, absolutely. And KlimaDAO itself is a DAO, so we are international, and we've got people from all over the world working with us. So yeah, digital and international, it's the way. Thank you so much. First of all, it was wonderful conversation with you. So I'm actually willing to finish, let's say, our beautiful talk with some small steps. Everyone could do it. It's a love letter to the world. And could you explain more about that? How we will add the link down below to the let's say YouTube video, and let's explain to our audience how that love letter to the world could be their first step towards let's say somehow creating brighter future for the beautiful planet.
For sure. So yeah, love letters for the planet, for the world is one of probably my favorite KlimaDAO project. So if you go to loveletter.klimadao.finance, you can see the dashboard where people have offset. And if you go to klimadao.finance/offset, that's where you can actually offset to make the love letter, and it just plugs straight into our liquidity pool. There's no insane fees to do it. You just connect your wallet, click offset, and it'll do it for you. And then you have an option to put a little letter in at the bottom, to your mum, your dad, your dog, whoever, and then it'll be broadcast up onto our loveletter.klimadao.finance page. And yeah, we just think it's a nice little solution for people who kind of want to show the commitment that they've made.
Yes, it's just beautiful. I'm truly with all my heart willing that simple, that simplicity and user experience could help, let's say, millions, let's say, to make their first step. Because let's be honest, the carbon footprint is just a part of how we destroy, let's say, that beautiful planet. We poison it with a lot of chemicals, and it's not just the carbon footprint alone. But let's do our first steps. Everybody could make those small steps, and actually will do it myself because ability and let's say that simple user experience, it's also very important for millions to connect with the projects like yours and mine, just to make their first steps, just to get a touch, get, let's say, that feeling of improving, because it's like Kaizen. You're making one good step, and another, and another, and another, and another, and you're addicted to, let's say, improving a lot of things around you. So I'm eager for that type of addiction, creating the world around you better. Thank you so much for that conversation, Oxy.
Amazing. Thank you so much.